All right, we told you yesterday about Microsoft's unveiling of the specs inside its upcoming monster of a console, Scorpio. Even has a monster name, Scorpio. I like it. And champing at the bit to talk all about it today is Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica. How's it going, Sam?
I'm just chomping at the bit to talk about a Scorpio, apparently. No, I
That's
absolutely
not food,
am.
right? No.
Well, it's funny because Scorpio is a thing that we've been talking about since last summer.
Yeah.
Microsoft has not been shy. As soon as word really got out there that they would have another box, we've been really talking about it. And Digital Foundry, which is a name that I've been following over at Eurogamer for some time, got some very huge dibs. I mean, there's a lot to really dig into. Where do you want to start?
Well, okay, so first things first, I'm having a hard time understanding whether this is like an iterative kind of half step the way we've seen with like the PS4 in recent months, or whether this is the next big Microsoft console, or even what does this say about Microsoft's strategy for Xbox going forward?
Sure. I think that it's interesting because what Microsoft really wants is for you to just buy an Xbox, and as long as it's in a store in modern days and it says Xbox, that it'll run Xbox games. And that Windows 10 is also sort of part of the strategy. They really want you to essentially want to play their games on any system. And so what I think they're setting this up to be is if you've got some more money and you've got the super fancy TV that could use the extra bump in 4K and HDR effects and things like that, that this newer box that's going to definitely be more expensive will give you more. Or if you don't want that, if you want to get something for $200 that will play the same games, get that. Or if you have a Windows 10 machine that's decent enough, that'll work too. That's the dream world. That is the thing that they're putting out there. And that's going to be a hard thing for people to really get through their heads, because when you go to the store, there's other Xboxing is the plural I prefer, where you've got, the Xbox 360, the Xbox original, that can make things a little confusing. So games won't just work on every system, but this one is designed essentially to be, you don't need it. The other games will work, but if you do get it on whatever Scorpio is eventually named, it'll run the quote-unquote best.
Okay, so Eurogamer says it's going to cost around $500. That's their guess. What's your guess?
Ooh, I think that Microsoft has an opportunity to, if they do get up to that price, dump in pre-installed software so that for $500 you get a couple of games thrown in, that sort of thing. So my guess is whatever we're going to get is going to have a high price tag, probably up to $500. Could be $400. They could really undercut and want to make that big move to get into living rooms and lose a little cash. Whatever they're going to do, I really do expect packed in software by default. In fact, it's going to be older games that have been patched for 4K is my guess. I don't have any reason other than a hunch, and the fact that pack-ins are a cheap way to add value to something that has a high sticker price as a reason for that. They're going to want people to come in, and I think E3 is going to be a chance for them to say, buy in, and we're going to take these older games and they're going to look awesome. Because as I've talked about in some reviews I've done, all of the games from last year's Xbox line were designed to run in 4K on Windows 10. I've got a souped up PC. I ran Gears of War 4 and Forza Horizon 3 at 4K, running sometimes at 60 frames a second, not always. And it looked awesome. I said Scorpio is technically here if you have a crazy expensive computer, but I think that's what we're going to see.
How does 4K on, let's say, the PS4 Pro compare to what we're seeing here with Scorpio? Is it kind of on the Sony side? Is it more like a half step, and here it's like all in 4K content is what you can expect?
That's going to be a thing we have to wait to see, because we haven't seen any gameplay footage on Scorpio. We have Richard Ledbetter's word that it looks great. He gave us one little screenshot of a 4K bit of existing Forza game. We already have a ton of PlayStation 4 games, and what we can tell you is that a 4K, quote-unquote 4K, on PlayStation 4 Pro games is quite sharp. It's not exactly 4K. There tends to be stair-stepping, or checkerboarding can be the term that's used to sort of get sort of close to 4K. That is good enough, because the issue with 4K, I find, is that it's not as impressive as the jump from old TVs to 1080p. So it's good enough, and I don't know that we're going to really notice the difference between pure quote unquote 100% every single pixel 4K and the current tricks that PlayStation 4 Pro currently uses to take its older games and bump them up to 4K. So there will, I think, be a difference, and I think Microsoft is going to work their darndest to show us games that sell that. For now, all we have is faith and rainbows and unicorns to work with.
Yeah, it'll be really impressive if you have, as everyone probably will, that 80-inch 4K TV hanging on your wall. We'll all be.
We're coming over to your house later to check out all of the Scorpio games that don't exist, right? What other dreams are we going to fulfill? Do I get Tesla here? What are we talking about? No, I mean it's so much guesswork because 4K is one of these funny things that not everyone has, and I think there's also an assumption that people are going to buy 4K TVs. They're going to be the only TVs for sale in the next year, 2 years, just because it's the same cost to make. So it's just, I think a lot of people want to be the 4K thing, and I will say Microsoft did a smart thing with their Xbox One S and put a fancy pants 4K Blu-ray player into it. I've been loving Planet Earth 2 on that. And I think that's going to get talked about a lot. But then they can't call it Xbox 4K, though, when it comes to a name, because the Xbox One S kind of sort of does 4K as well. So that's going to be confusing because they haven't named it yet. Right. I'd be curious. I like to think Xbox 2 as a name, but I think that would be confusing because then people will think, oh, well, it won't work. I think they really painted themselves in a corner with Xbox One as a name, because if they want to iterate on that, wait, wasn't that the one? How many ones do I need? So that's, I don't know about what you guys are guessing for names, but I think that's actually going to be a bigger problem, the name of this thing, than other people think. Just because, again, what's the messaging? What does this thing do? Do I need it? Will it work with the old games? That one is going to really be obnoxious. It's going to be worse than the Wii U in terms of name confusion, in my opinion. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
My guess is Y box.
Yeah, they're changing in a different direction. I never saw that coming.
Yeah.
I was thinking 1+1, but then that already exists in the phone world.
Yeah. So. This might be a little bit inside baseball, but you wrote an interesting piece about who they gave it to, the Scorpio 2 first, Digital Foundry. Talk a little bit about that. I found that interesting in terms of game reviewing. Inside baseball.
This is such an inside baseball thing. I'll try and be brief. Is that Microsoft is clearly proud of the silicon here, the machine that they've put together, and specifically the fact that it, so as far as we know, as we've been told, does all these little tricks that makes it specially efficient, that they had everything in the chips designed and customized so that it would work very nicely with what's known as DirectX 12 specifically, which is one of the API calls that developers use for most PC games and x86 style PC games, that sort of specific development architecture. You know, other game systems have come and gone and tried to go, we need a core with a bazillion processors and these stupid things and that, and it doesn't work. And Microsoft has really busted their butts to deliver that sort of thing. So the guys at Eurogamer's Digital Foundry have been the ones who have just essentially said Xbox One is worse. That's what they've said all along, and they've been able to do it with all this video analysis stuff where they show games running side by side and they analyze the frame pacing, which is like exactly how the image refreshes. So when they say 30 frames a second and it doesn't look right, they can tell you why that is and stuff like that. So as I said, this is like McDonald's inviting ABC News's Pink Slime reporting team into a beef factory. They're saying, all right, you're the ones who have issues and have specific complaints. We're going to serve you every single thing you're asking us about on a platter. And as a result, everything about the story and everything that we all reported from it was all in the language of, oh, these are the guys who care about this stuff, and they have been answered and responded to. However, Digital Foundry didn't talk about certain stuff, in particular, virtual reality. Xbox has been bullish about saying in events, this is going to be a VR system. They've been very vague otherwise, but they called it out, VR. And there was nothing in this report that Digital Foundry did that talked about or asked about or hinted at VR in a big way. And that's interesting because if they were the ones individually reporting on it, if they went behind Microsoft's back and gotten some leaked info and stuff, they would have been able to be like, what's VR going to be like? And they didn't answer or ask that question. So that got lost in it. So this is what happens when a game company and an outlet team up together, is that certain questions just don't get asked and a lot of people just let it slide. But we at Ars Technica are very curious whether they're going to step back, take a breath, and maybe not focus so much on VR based on how VR has been sort of meh over the past year in terms of consumer performance.
Yeah, right. God, a part of me thinks that it would be really strange if they didn't at least have VR as part of it. But if we don't know, then you don't know, and maybe we'll find out eventually. What are some of the hurdles that Microsoft has to overcome to make this a success? I mean, one challenge I see is in this kind of new approach to upgrading the console. It's making sure that people who just bought into the Xbox, when the Xbox One launched, how many years ago was that at this point? It wasn't that long ago. Making sure that they don't feel like second-class, owners to the new system, that they still feel somewhat modern. Is that a big challenge for Microsoft?
I'm not so sure that that's a problem because the Xbox One came out, I want to say 4 years ago, 2013. Some fact checker hit me on the internet if I'm messing that up by I believe 2013. I think that the estimate at this point is that the average avid gaming person has enough money to throw every 3, 4, 5 years and is buying multiple systems and is willing to throw that $300, $400 at a box. That's not everybody. But that core group may not be afraid of going, that's good value, and it's going to be truly 4K gaming. So I don't know that that's the hurdle as much as the confusion of, wait, which system do I need?
Right.
If I buy the Xbox One S, am I going to be left behind? If I buy the Xbox One Pro or Scorpio or whatever they call it, how long until I need to replace that? That creates that question of, because this is going to be an ongoing system is the idea. Like that's why there's so much backwards compatible stuff coming from the 360 to Xbox One, because Microsoft wants this to be kind of like an iPhone, where you have a comfortable amount of software at any given time that is compatible with whatever just came out, and that eventually within 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to be like, yeah, I like throwing my electronics away and getting a new thing. And they're really banking on gaming fans and living room box users being the same way. So I think that messaging about which box you need and what you're going to get and whether games are going to get left behind is going to be the big thing. Also, the name, I'm telling you, man, we're going to be talking about whatever stupid name they come up with. It's going to be stupid. I'm telling you, stupid name's coming.
Why box?
Listen, that would be better than what we're going to get. That's my vote. Megan wins the naming contest. Everybody else is a chump.
And that's free advice from Megan, right? You're not charging for that for Microsoft, or maybe you should. Maybe you should. Okay, well then, final thoughts. Are you excited about what you learned? Does it live up to kind of any internal expectations that you may have had at this point?
I will say from my conversations with folks at the Xbox team, and they don't tell me much of good stuff because they know me. They see me as guy incognito wearing the press hat at the bar. I'm like, I'm not listening to this for journalism. But I will say the Xbox team is really being given resources to make things that gamers like. That's how it was when the Xbox 360 was sort of at its peak, and things went downhill when they were like, we're going to do Kinect and we're going to make Kinect be a big thing. And the original Xbox One kind of stunk. So things are turning around, and I feel like this Scorpio system is going to be sort of the fulfillment of a 3 to 4 year plan of essentially a system that's truly designed to kick butt and to make it easy for other game makers to show up on a platform and make an incredibly good looking piece of 4K software. Now, do we really need 4K processing to make incredible games? Not necessarily. I'm playing the crap out of my Switch right now, which is a 720p portable system. It looks great on my TV as well, but you don't need a bunch of pixels to make an incredible game. And that's a message that's got to be sent through as well with the older Xbox and the newer one, and that everyone can just kind of buy whatever system they want and play games. And, Xbox is sort of behind. They're not dead. People are buying Xbox and playing games on Xbox. It's not like the Dreamcast in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. But it's just going to bear to be seen how that all shakes out and which games come out and the first party games. Microsoft doesn't have a lot of announced stuff coming out for this year that's getting people excited. There's been more cancellations and bad news than there has been really good news announced. So I think that's a much bigger and more important message for the end of this year than whether the Scorpio is hot.
Excellent. I'm happy we saved the Scorpio talk for you, Sam. I knew you'd bring it.
Well, I like to think of myself as the TWiT Scorpio.
That you are. Get over here. No, that's Scorpion. Sorry. Sam Machkovech, Ars Technica.com. Where do you want people to find all your stuff that you're writing?
Just come over to my house in Seattle. We'll play some Switch. It'll be fun. Come on over. At Sam Red on the Twitter. Yeah, or we'll go to the movies this weekend. Colossal is starting to come out everywhere. Totally recommend that. If it's not out in your town this weekend, it should be out next weekend. Anne Hathaway, Giant Monsters. I'm not going to say anything else. It's much better than that might sound. I already think that sounds good. It's a good movie.
Sounds good. Yeah, I've heard good reviews already. So, all right. Thank you, Sam. Have a good weekend.